And I was still kind of just feeling like, wow, my life is, everything is so good, but I had to, just like Michael Singer says, you have to choose to be happy.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Hey, Lance, how you doing?
Fantastic, Sue.
All
So good
right.
to see you again.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Before we jump in, I want to ask you a question. What is one fun fact that people do not know about you?
Yeah, good question. Great question. I think a fun fact that most people don't know about me is that I grew up in on a farm in Spring Grove, Pennsylvania, a 40-acre farm, a little farmhouse that my dad, when he got out of the army, renovated with his seven other brothers. And we had cattle and pigs and chickens, and I had my own pony. And I didn't realize how good I had it because so many people are trying to get back to the self-sustained living and that so it was fun growing up in the country, even though I went to school in the city of York at a little Catholic school called St. Rose of Lima.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, getting
Yeah.
back to that. Yeah, getting back to the roots. I just had a guest on a couple weeks ago. His name's Jim Gale, and he has a company called Food Forest Abundance. And that's what their movement is about. It's about taking your lawn that you have, no matter how big or how small, and turning it into a garden that you can feed your family with. I mean, supplement, I would say. I don't know if you can
Yes.
totally get it all,
Right.
feed your entire family. But yeah, there's just something about going back to nature and going back to your roots that is exciting. And it's
For
also
sure.
empowering. So
Yes,
it's very
yes. Yeah,
rad.
one of the, I'm in the Philly area, and Sergio Altomar, who you may know through
Hmm.
GoBundance, has just bought a farm and is trying to dive in and figure it out. So there's definitely a movement and a trend,
Yeah.
so I have to kind of get back to, yeah, my childhood and get back there at some point.
Oh, that's fun. So let's jump into your book because I
Yeah.
was doing my homework and you wrote a book called The 4% Breakthru. And I really feel like it's written for entrepreneurs, but as I dug into it more, are so many nuggets of wisdom that anybody can glean from. So I want to talk about that and what's the book real quick, and then what prompted you to write it?
Yeah. So the book is a process it's my best consolidation of all the life and business experience that I had in 2018 when I'd really been through a lot of ups and downs, which we'll speak about, and putting all that together in a process where every chapter is a step to scale an organization and stay healthy because that's a big part of my story. Many entrepreneurs really redline it and push too far. And even if they actually achieve their goals, often they lose their family, their partner, their spouse, their relationships, their health, which was my particular story, even as a physical therapist and a personal trainer. So that's what it is. And I guess why I wrote it, I'll give you my story in a nutshell. Trained as a physical therapist, and so is my wife. We were 1 year behind in school. We both had the amazing experience of living and studying abroad in Aberdeen, Scotland. And when we got back to the States, I didn't think I had an entrepreneurial bone in my body, and I just wanted to master my craft. So I got board certified. I got my doctorate on evenings and weekends. I commuted to the University of Medicine and Dentistry, Rutgers, and Newark, an hour and a half. And um, really got the best I possibly could at my craft. But then after about 3 or 4 years, I started to realize it could be done better. And I wanted to uniquely bring physical therapy and fitness together. So we subletted 300 square feet from a little boutique fitness center, the size of an average American bedroom. And we really, besides bringing fitness and physical therapy together, tried to innovate and pioneer and be more customer service focused and really no matter where someone was on the what we call the continuum of health, we tried to move them towards the right, towards becoming healthier and more fit. and not just getting off of a table in physical therapy, and not. So we really wanted them to yeah, to move on to fitness and massage, personal training, and whether they did it with us or on their own. Um, so we grew our practice. I studied partnerships. We took on our best people as partners, and we became a multi-location company. And we had 5 locations. And one of our partners had said they, at a development plan meeting, which is part of our secret sauce, really outside of reviews, looking at people and asking them what their short and long-term goals are. They said they wanted to run the company, and I took a deep breath. I was kind of startled, and took a deep breath and thought that, okay, this could be a mutual win. And after 3 years of developing in 2018, this person took over the CEO role of our company. And so in 2018, I tried to figure out how I was going to spread my wings next and what I was going to do. And I talked to a franchise broker, and I realized it was fun being on the Shark Tank side of the equation. And I was really having fun looking at their marketing plans and their business plans, but I realized I was too entrepreneurial to be a franchisee, and I realized I wanted to pay it all forward and help other entrepreneurs. So I started a mastermind, started some group coaching and then some private coaching, and that's when I went to Podcast Movement. Speaking of podcasts, to see someone I really emulate, John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneurs on Fire, and Self Publishing School. Chandler Bolt's team was there in Philadelphia, and they helped me connect the dots to say, well, listen, if you're going to start to do some coaching, consulting, writing a book will help give you some credibility. So it really, again, helped me organize all of my best thoughts and thinking and put it into a framework. Then started. It took me 18 months, starting in 2018 and publishing end of February 2020. So it was kind of awkward timing then,
I
right
bet.
before the pandemic, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, how did you mitigate that then?
Well, I
you're
don't
all
know that I
ready, life
mitigated
is
it.
normal, and
Yeah.
then, March 2020 hits. What did you do?
Yeah. Well, things went upside down. We had to furlough. We decided to furlough our entire team to protect them and to protect us. And it turned out to be a good decision. Our people were thankful for being, protected that way. And I jumped back in and was treating full time and still trying to keep my new coaching business and the book launch all moving. So it was challenging, but you know life got better, and we were able to gradually bring back our team, and I was able to just hand back those hats again, those clinical hats, because I'd already handed off the leadership hats at that point. So it was good. We made it through, but it wasn't easy.
One surprising thing that came out of that experience that you didn't expect was going to happen?
Out of the
The
pandemic.
COVID and the pandemic, yeah, and
Oh,
having to transition so fast. And the reason I ask is, I was
yeah,
teaching at the time in the schools, and they sent all of us home, and they're like, "Okay, go figure it out. You now need to go from
yeah,
teaching in person to figuring out how to teach online." And
right,
so literally overnight, millions of teachers had to figure out how to become
right.
podcasters in a way, teaching online.
Totally. Yeah. I the first thing that jumps out to me is, with coaching, I have one client that I see in person who's 10 minutes away, who's an 80-year-old entrepreneur growing at 100%. So he's super fun. But besides him, really, I am able to see everyone, virtually and help them, and it's effective. So I feel like that's a great benefit, because travel really, I had no idea what I was doing as a physical therapist to move into coaching entrepreneurs. And so that's a really big gift. And it totally gives me lifestyle freedom. Last year, I was able to travel, family trip to, actually, father son trip to Breckenridge with Thomas Fanner, who you may know from Emerge, and then straight to a family. Okay, great, wonderful human, and we've coached one another, and then straight to a family vacation and my wife's family reunion in California, and then straight to an adventure trip in Maine. So it was like 15 or 16 days straight, and I did a couple coaching sessions in California, maybe 3 or 4, but it's allowed me to have that lifestyle freedom and geographic freedom as well. So that's been a big benefit.
Yeah. So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. What are some of the common mistakes that you see them make when they're trying to at least get started or scale businesses?
Yeah, one of the things I'm most passionate about And I've been surveying, collecting data, is being strategic and creating a plan. Many entrepreneurs go straight to action, and you hear so many thought leaders say, just take action, just take action. My mantra would be take strategic action. And I was fortunate enough to write with Emerge. So you know how passionate I am. The 3 sessions that I did were vision, company mission, and personal mission. And it's that higher level, strategic work before jumping down into your immediate actions. So, again, I was fortunate enough to be mentored in someone that did all the business planning in the 80s for IBM. And they mentored me in the traditional business planning process. And that really helped. The magic is in the process. That helped Breakthru Physical Therapy and Fitness survive and thrive over my 13 years as an operator to take it from zero to, multi-million-dollar company with double-digit profitability. But then in 2018, when I started coaching and helping other entrepreneurs, I realized that if I was to say to you today, Sue, right, and we've actually done this process, if I said, well, you needed 40 or 80 or 120 hours versus the 2 that we did to do what I call a JOLT, life and business plan, you would have said, Lance, that's impossible. So I boiled down, a traditional process into its most important parts. And I did add one step, which is a personal mission. So I want entrepreneurs to really decide what their calling, their purpose, their why, their reason, whatever you want to call it, but to know that first and look through that lens and decide that first. And then, some of those other higher level things we talked about, like the company mission and their vision, their North Star, and then go through, 1 year plan to their actions. But it doesn't have to take a lot of time. So not only creating a plan, but then actually learning how to having the discipline and executing it for all the reasons is difficult. And my survey of about 500 entrepreneurs, only about 10 in the last 5 years that I've surveyed have a plan and use it. So 2% of the people, which is not an accident that number is close to the number of businesses that fail in 10 years. Only 4% survive 10 years, 96% fail. So that's like the highest level thing that I notice. And really, it's a passion of mine, a mission of mine to actually help reverse that 96% failure to a 96% success. And to me, it starts with planning and getting some skill with that.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I hear in what you were talking about. I want to circle back to and make
Yeah,
sure that this point isn't lost, that it took you 13 years. It took you a while to start building what you were building. And the challenge in our society today, I think, is people want the microwave effect. I want to be an overnight millionaire. And
right.
we were talking off camera before we started, it
Yeah,
takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
for sure.
And it does. I mean, and what you're talking about is no different. The second is you mentioned North Star, and that not only do entrepreneurs need to have that business plan so that they know what direction they're going in. And I think a lot of them, if you're starting something out, you at least have a business idea of what it is that you're doing. But the other component, that personal component, that North Star, can be a challenge for some. So, talk about how you help people get to their North Star.
Yeah, yeah. The word mission statement, which is how it's often described, like a personal mission statement, it can be a little intimidating for many entrepreneurs. So, the way that I help entrepreneurs quickly get that information is I just ask them to list their top 5 priorities. And literally within 30 seconds to a couple minutes, we can do that. And thought leaders will often say that entrepreneurs should think about the oxygen mask approach first, like to take care of themselves. But there's no right or wrong answers, but definitely that has to be somewhere in the mix because we so often ignore ourselves. Um, so that's a quick way to get your mission. And then with the vision, even Vivid Vision, who Cameron Harold, many people know, and certainly the GoBundance community and Emerge, everyone is a big fan of, only advocates for, a 5 and 10 year vision. I was mentored in, and I believe, and I just did a 2 day vision course before the last conference in Vermont just last week. And, Aaron West does an incredible job. And I love to, study with the best. Um, I believe there's benefits to having um, a final vision, a final North Star, if that's possible. And I struggle with that as well. So I know for everyone listening, you may think, well, it's hard. I can only think about small increments. That's fine. Back into it, but keep thinking about your destination, because that will help you. So and it's going when you really think about it, it's going to be more than just having your feet up on the beach. The research is very clear that you have to be serving others to really have fulfillment and happiness. There's a book written by two physicians called Wonder Drug, which goes through the research in detail why serving others is the best medicine for yourself. Um, so yeah, so with the vision work, I really challenge everyone listening not just to do a 5 year or 10 year, but to try to think further, right? And of course, everyone wants freedom, geographic, lifestyle, financial freedom, but think about your cause. Know your financial freedom number so you can reverse into that, like on a horizontal basis, horizontal or passive or semi-passive, and by net worth, and then definitely know your bucket list items so you can start to live them now. Because check out Bill Perkins' Die with Zero, if you're not familiar with that. Many people save too long
It's
and
on the
wait
it's
too
on my
long.
shelf back here.
Oh my gosh.
It was
Let's
a
gain
great
some
book.
more
That was a
life
great book. It was very,
experiences.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
humbling to read that. And
totally. Yeah.
he did a great job at, differentiating out between dying with zero, but then also being realistic that you have to expect life to happen too. I mean, you don't want to be broke. You don't want to have a life event happen and not be able to take care of yourself. That wasn't the point of dying with zero. The point was to pay forward what you can now to enjoy, as you said, enjoy life for enjoy it now, but also mitigate it out so that you can get close to dying with zero. Lance, what's your ultimate North Star for you personally?
Yeah. For me personally, great question. Yeah. So now I'm thinking about my jolt. So many, definitely freedom, and I've been fortunate enough to achieve geographic, lifestyle, and even recently financial freedom. So I'm just working through that, and it's a lot of transition, and it's all good. So I am passionate about serving entrepreneurs. So this year, similar to you, Sue, you're so talented, and we talked before the interview about all the things you're working on. Similar to me, I'm staying focused on coaching and serving entrepreneurs, because similar to you, I just wrote a manuscript for a book on partnerships. I want to share that with the world. However, my coaches challenged me, Lance, listen, do that next year, release that next year. Let's stay focused on growing, Denali and your coaching. So I'm really focused on that right now. And as I said, my big grand mission is helping totally reverse that success rate from, 4% to 96% for entrepreneurs. And as far as causes and bucket lists go, even just last year, some bucket lists like taking our kids to Europe. We really were fortunate enough to take our kids to Portugal and Spain and Italy, and we're going to Greece this summer. So really trying to die with zero, get more life experiences with our kids. They're already high school age, and they're going to be on their own very soon. I'm passionate about arthritis. I help the Arthritis Foundation. I'd really love to transform healthcare. Healthcare is a big problem. And, there's a couple people, again, in the GoBundance community, Dr. Prashant Singri, who's got a really grand vision about direct healthcare and not being like limited by the insurance companies and doing what's in a client and patient's best interest. And again, for me, I haven't really been able to bring the vision together of physical therapy and fitness, because the rest of our story is after we had a partner um, come on, we had an attractive business and private equity had their eye on us. And once you sit down in discussions with them, it's, you really are in a position where it's most likely going to happen. And if not, they were going to cannibalize my best person. So I had to decide if I wanted to jump back in and be the operator or not. But long story short, in 2021, we sold the majority of our business. And that was different than our original vision, which was to create an independent practice where we could gain our wealth and then future clinicians could gain their wealth and the cycle would repeat. So that was good news, bad news. It just wasn't our original story, but it was first world problems.
Yeah. How did
Um,
you feel when that pivot
yeah,
happened? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was like
Well,
a, you're going down the highway and then all of a sudden the car veers and you take this off ramp
totally.
that you didn't think was going to happen. Talk a little bit
Yeah,
about that. How did you feel about
sure.
that? How did you, how'd you deal with that? Because that could be derailing for an entrepreneur when you think
For
your business
sure.
is going in that direction
Yeah.
and then it really
Because I
changes.
had this vision, right, that was going to be so special.
Mhm.
And again, that's why I want to put the partnership book out to help other entrepreneurs leverage partnerships to really accelerate creating a self-managing company. We did. But yeah, private equity and a sale was not part of this. So I definitely had some seller's remorse, and we hadn't completely conquered this, this perfect combination of physical therapy and fitness. And, I was able to buffer things and create a win-win because I was able to coach the organization, the CEO and the executives and the regional directors. So that was great. I was still involved at a different level because over the last 5 years, 2023 being the first year that I wasn't treating at all, so I was still able to be intimately involved. So it worked out fine, but it was a lot to digest and process. However, in business terms, the recapitalization happened maybe 3 months ago, meaning the next private equity company came in and purchased the current company. So we are even more out, and we're still working out the details, but we are ambassadors, of course, but we may not be stakeholders. So again, that's even more to digest. We're in our hometown where we have two locations and we started the business and we're still the face of the business, my wife and I. So it is a lot. And it's again, great opportunities and we're very, humbly, blessed. However, it's easy to get attached to your vision, right? Which I was speaking about. But you are able to manifest it. The more crystallized you have your personal mission and vision, I know that some of these things certainly didn't happen by accident, right? When I wrote my Napoleon Hill, my Think and Grow Rich, document, I was, I guess, maybe 1 year off, but a lot of it, most of it came true.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it is tough sometimes to switch. You have to switch those gears. There's a chapter in your book on building a successful mindset. So let's go into the mindset coaching weeds because,
Okay.
like cultivating a mindset of resilience and growth and optimism can be difficult for some, because life is going to throw stuff at you.
Yeah.
I think it's unrealistic to think that life we're going to cruise along and everything's going to be okay and there's not going to be any bumps in the road. What's your mindset approach to managing all that you do in your business, personal life, and health? And you talked about a holistic view because I think as entrepreneurs and even people in general, like you could just be all out on your job or you could just be all out in one area. But what you're advocating, and I've heard in other spaces too, it's not just you need to take a holistic approach. You need to not only go into the business, but your personal life and take care of your health. So, talk about your mindset approach on all those areas and how that's helped you in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like mindset is the epicenter and our mental health. And, we just discovered that we're both Michael Singer fans, and I've just discovered Untethered Soul and just, consumed it twice. And I'm so thrilled about that and still digesting it and enjoying it and practicing it. So, what I put together is the first section is really some first step and section of my book is introspective thought exercises, really to get into your heart and soul and figure out, some deep things about yourself. So that's a lot of mindset challenge right there. And then the second section is business fundamentals. And again, that's every chapter is a step. So there's 5 steps in chapters. And then lastly is the last step is incorporating health and healthy lifestyle. And the very first step or chapter is mental health, and then nutrition, exercise, sleep, posture. And the things that I would add after writing the book would be more play and laughter, which have a lot of research. So, really, I've got this mindset in the third section, but also the entire first section, you could argue, is a lot of mental health and really understanding yourself. So the interplay is between your mental and physical and even emotional health is so dynamic and so amazing. So yeah, with the book process, we kind of start with it, and then we do some business fundamentals, which we talked about the strategic planning that's kind of mixed in there, and a lot of things that entrepreneurs, I guess, to go back to your earlier question, that would be the other thing that entrepreneurs, need to do, just get their fundamentals in place earlier. And like a specific thing would be just spend 10% more time on anything you're doing and document your process, capture your process. And then again, incorporating your mental health together within all the lifestyle things, because lifestyle has more and more, research to back it up. With our health and lifespan, Peter Attia is diving in on the research, but we don't want our end of years. And I have Bill Perkins, right? With I Was Zero, the research is like modern medicine just extends our life at the end when our quality of life is very low. So if we can extend our quality of life over the years, that will be way better. And the research shows that 70 to 80% of our lifespan and quality of life is based on our lifestyle. And some of the new research is actually showing 90+%. So it's in our control. We can't blame, anyone. We can't blame our parents. It's not all genetic.
Right, right. Yeah, you talked about mental health and stuff. What are some tools that are in your mental health toolbox that help keep you running?
Yeah. The first one I'd like to share with everyone is what my mentor and coach just called shifting your mood. And even today, I was thinking about it. And, I'm not the type of person that just wakes up like happy and doing cartwheels. My morning routine is important, and I have to pay myself first, right? In kind of, business language. So I read first, and then I journal. And I was still kind of just feeling like, wow, my life is, everything is so good, but I had to, just like Michael Singer says, you have to choose to be happy, right? So I had to just shift my mood and say, oh my gosh, it's a great day. I'm starting off the podcast, and I'm meeting some new people, and I've got a, mastermind and some individual clients. Like I am fortunate enough to have created my dream life. And, so, but even with a, incredible day like today, at least for me personally, I don't necessarily wake up with, doing cartwheels and just singing. So I have to actually shift my mood and declare that I'm happy and decide and make it so. So whatever, quote mood you're in, you can control your mindset and your mood. So take advantage of that, practice that. Check out Michael Singer if you need a little bit more detail.
Yeah, yeah, he's big on the mantras. Actually, there's a lot of people out there that repeat mantras to themselves. They come in different shapes and forms. Singer talks about them, calling a mantra. I've heard afro mantras. I've heard of all different ones. Just what you say to yourself, yeah, how you talk to yourself first thing in the morning. But what I love that you said is that it's a choice. and
Right.
and when we go through life looking at it like most of what we experience in a day and how we react to it, that's a choice. We can't control what comes at us, but we can control how we react to that thing. And I appreciated that you said that you wake up in the morning and, it's a choice. You have to choose to embrace your day. And you can wake up and say, good God, it's morning. Or you can wake up and say, good morning, God, this is great.
Yes. Yes. So
And
good.
yeah, you can make that decision. I'm part of a coaching program, and they have a protocol that's called flip the switch. When you are in a particular mode, you can change your attitude just like flipping a switch. And there's a couple of things that you just kind of say to yourself, hey, hey, hero, or whatever you want to call yourself. And, chest down, or wait a minute, chest up, chin down. I'm a little dyslexic. Chest up, chin down, breathe, smile, and flip the switch and show up. And that's a choice. It's a choice that we can make. So I love that tool in the toolbox. So now let's flip the switch just a little bit. So you're having an unexpected day, like the day goes south a little bit, everything's hitting the fan. What are some things that you do during that day so that you're not completely derailed and you kind of catch yourself from continuing to spiral downward?
Right. Great question. I think my toolbox is growing. I'm studying breathing and, and definitely my inner voice. And, um, with breathing, definitely guided breathing is great. And I'm really studying, Wim Hof more recently. And I do that daily. And even just a little tactic, I'm able to do what Andrew Huberman calls space-time bridging twice a day because I do it when I brush my teeth. It literally takes under a minute. So it's actually perfect timing. So, yeah, so many growing tools to more quickly put myself back into a better place. And, even just some basic concepts, right? I know we're talking about a lot of books, but, the Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz was something that my mentor, Marilyn, gave me, and she gifted when she was working to everyone in her life. And for those that don't know, number one is be impeccable with your word, and number two is don't make assumptions. And the don't make assumptions is a big one because, many times you may be feeling a certain way with your interactions with people, and it's really not about, you, it's about them. And so, yeah, so those are a few immediate ideas that I really integrate. And just more quickly, I've become skilled at not letting myself go in a spiral. And definitely over that 13 years, as you mentioned, I made all the mistakes. And I believe that small businesses, for everyone listening, are the ultimate personal and professional development tool. So this one thing that I also did is not get too high with the highs and low with the lows. However, make sure that you're still being playful enough because and really celebrate your wins because for at least for me that was something, right? I kind of blunted the great opportunities and moments a little bit and too much. So maybe we should actually rethink that. It should be not to get too low with the lows, but get as
Right.
high as you can with the highs because that'll actually help you offset that.
Yeah, or reset your baseline so that
Yeah,
your lows are actually would be a high, and then you just keep going higher and higher. Would you consider yourself a
love that.
perfectionist?
I have high perfectionism, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm a recovering perfectionist as well.
Yes. Okay.
And so, yeah, and I think that's a driver too. And something you were, and the reason I was thinking about that is because you said about celebrating wins. And for those of us who are perfectionists or high achievers, and maybe, and I probably, it's probably not fair to put that into a bucket, but I think it's more prevalent than not, is that when you're a high achiever, at least this is my own experience, and I experience a win, I don't really take it as a win and I don't take time to celebrate it because in my
Right.
brain, it's like, oh, check off the box. Yeah, you got
Right.
that. You don't have to celebrate that win. And I'm learning as you are, if you're in this continual process to grow and learn, that's that growth mindset, right? I just realized that, wait a minute, you have to take time to celebrate those wins because it's a positive dopamine hit to the brain. It slows you down too. And then
Definitely.
once you
Yeah. When
start
you can
seeing
create
them, you
some,
start recognizing them.
yeah. And along the lines, you can actually control your neurochemicals and other people's with what I mentioned with the play and laughter. You are literally, mixing somebody's, neurochemistry when you create, laughter in somebody else. So take advantage of that.
You know what? You just talked about like when your laughter, when you are positive or giving off positive
Right.
vibes, there is actually now science that backs that. And you probably know more of the science and research than I do. But when you are radiating that positive state, it also because we're energy beings, that actually physically manifests itself out from us as well and can map onto somebody who's close to us. Are you familiar with that type of research and have seen that? Like the law of attraction?
Yeah, well, I'm familiar with the law of attraction, and there's two very smart ladies who wrote a book called Humor Seriously. They're Stanford professors and then business school. So, they did a literature review on humor, and then, Andrew Huberman, as he always does, dove into the research on play. So it's a growing body of knowledge, really, on yeah, positivity and laughter and a playful spirit. And again, this was, I'm acknowledging this was a weakness of mine. I was in the trenches and I'm not I was never the most talented person in the room, but certainly again, I probably had that farmer's work ethic that we started with, which was probably a little bit of a blessing and a curse because the story that I didn't tell you and everyone yet is my main message. In 2011, we had three offices and we had about 30 employees, and I was wearing all the management hats. So I was probably managing direct report for 30 people, which is, again, I made all the massive mistakes, and hopefully I can help everyone listening to make less to none. But I was working over 80 hours a week, not sleeping enough, not exercising, just abusing my body. I didn't have the skill, and I was just trying to make it all work. And we had three children under the age of 4. So I didn't know how to handle it all. And my body, had enough and revolted, and my digestive system, my GI system shut down and stopped working. And I was rendered helpless. And I was still treating 12-hour clinical days, 3 days a week, and doing the leadership management work outside of that. So it brought me to my knees, literally. And I was either in the bathroom or embarrassingly running to the bathroom. And I had to see specialists and rule out cancer, celiac, Crohn's. It was terrible. And again, that's why my message, fortunately, it was temporary, is to, do follow the 4% breakthrough process. Really, that's my gift to the world, to create a healthy business where entrepreneurs can get paid for the roles they have and have double-digit profitability beyond that, and create a healthy business that's actually a valuable asset that they could keep their profit generating machine or sell it.
Wow. How did you get yourself out of that low point? What was one of the turning points for you when you were having these issues in 2011?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, a friend of mine just recommended the brat diet just to try to be able to consume calories. I had to eat what, bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast, I guess it was. And even then, I was so stubborn. I can remember being at a diner with a physician. I was scheduled for a marketing meeting, and I was acting like nothing was wrong and still trying to push through. So and I was eating, bananas and toast, and just trying to make it. So yeah, getting that basic nutrition, but I had to slow down, right? You have to slow down to speed up. So I really had to get my house in order, and and my personal health, because going back to like a part of the theme of our today's conversation, what's most important, you really can't serve anyone else unless your cup is overflowing and you have your own health. So my personal priorities, number 1 and 2 for me, would be health number 1 and relationships number 2. And my mentor, Marilyn, who I keep speaking about, she, for her, number 1 was relationships. She talked about how relationships really energized her. Um, and again, there's no right or wrong, but I really have to take care of myself and value myself and do that self-care so that I can be a great husband and father and son and you know, entrepreneurial coach and leader.
Yeah, so let's talk about building powerful relationships then, because as
Yeah,
an entrepreneur, it can be really hard because you sometimes you feel like you're on an island, and then other times you're coming
yeah,
across so many different people that cross your path, and you can't you can't invest deeply in all of them, but yet you meet a lot of really neat people at the same time. So talk a little bit about your experience, how you cultivate strong relationships, how you choose some of those strong, who you choose to have a strong relationship with, and what's in your toolbox.
right. I mean, such a good question. And I hear it coming up right now in the entrepreneurial communities, people struggling with it. Everyone wants to up the 5 people they spend the most time with, right? Jim Rohn's famous statement. Me personally, where I've landed with this, I love to spend my time with entrepreneurs. Again, that's part of why I've created my dream life, hanging out with you today and the rest of today, serving others and meeting new entrepreneurs. However, my personal decision is to include my childhood friends, and high school friends and college friends. And some of them may not be entrepreneurs and may not want to set the world on fire and do some of these things we like to think about, do and dream and everything we're talking about. But they have a role in my life. Now, I may not spend as much time with them, but I want to include them in my life. So that's a personal decision. I know some of the guys, they really, I was surprised that some really successful entrepreneurs weren't including some people like that in their life. They were just sort of trying to, be around Elon Musk and the biggest, baddest, current successful people, and just the most successful GoBundance people. I personally feel like that's a mistake, right? To lose some of those relationships and friendships. Um, I think that people will decide for themselves, but for me, my family's relationships are 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 important, and I'm going to execute on something called the quarterly board meetings with my family this year. Really spend a big chunk of time with each one of my kids alone, and I've had fun just in the last week talking about my kids. Okay, think about something that you want to do, with me, and we'll do that. And then my wife, we're celebrating our 20-year anniversary, so I'm definitely trying to be better about keeping our relationship strong, because we're the foundation of even our immediate family's relationship. And for myself, our relationship struggled. We in 2004, we got married in May, and then we started our business in June. I do not recommend it to immediately start a relationship with your partner. It is not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. For us, it made us stronger, but it certainly tested our mettle. Um, so yeah, those are a few thoughts on relationships. Keep all your relationships. You can definitely be selective. And certainly, if you do some strategy, like intertwining a lot of the messages we're talking about today, um, you'll know what to say no to faster. So do not say yes to everything. That's another big benefit of doing taking strategic action, right? If you really know what your mission and your vision are, everything should be aligned. Say no to anything that does not align all the way through your planning process.
I've heard that before. That's a good suggestion. Just, because every time you say yes to something, you say no to something else. And you have to
For
really
sure.
think that through. How do you find the time to do all those things that you talk about then? Like how do you find the time to invest in your family and then stay connected to your businesses and grow your coaching practice and,
Yeah,
and still continue and still yet have fun and have a really, interesting life? How do you time
for
block all
sure.
that stuff?
It's not easy, and I still struggle with it, right? I have to manage myself because, I had a near, burnout episode, and that's the beauty of having accountability, of serving other entrepreneurs and being an anti-burnout expert. So it helps, keeps me accountable to do the right things. Now, specifically to answer your question, in the 4% breakthrough process in my book process, step 5, chapter 5 is where the rubber meets the road. And it's what I call a success schedule. And it's exactly what you said. It's a time map. And I have people commit to their priorities, their non negotiables, when they're going to sleep, when they're going to exercise, when they're going to have time in their relationships, when they're going to work on the business, right? Not just technician work. So whatever those non-negotiables are, like declaring them, and at least you have a roadmap, a framework. And of course, no one is going to follow it 100%. But if you don't have, some type of plan, 80% or better is probably success. And then of course, every week you'll continue to reevaluate and adjust your success plan and your life, and just you'll get better and better. But it'll never be perfect. It's kind of, be realistic with yourself. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, it's that growth mindset too versus fixed mindset. You've mentioned a couple of times, just continuing to do. And I'm getting this theme that life is a muscle. And the thing
Yeah,
building a business, forging good relationships, mastering your health, it's all a muscle that needs to just be exercised and you need to just continually keep pressing into it. It's not something that you arrive at. When you're building things, it's this fallacy that, oh, I will arrive when my business brings in X number of dollars, or I'm going
right.
to get to the top of that mountain. Whereas it might actually be better to look at it like you're running a race that never ends, or you're climbing a mountain that you never get to the top of. And then it just
Yeah,
continues, like you just continue to grow and keep growing.
totally. I would agree. I think we're scaling mountains, and we're going to keep moving on to mountains. We've never arrived, and we do need to as we've spoken about, celebrate those wins. And we do need to be the person we want to be. We can't put off impact in the causes that are important or contribution in philanthropy. Once I'm, worth, X million dollars, I'm going to start to be generous. That's not going to work. You need to be the person that can support your mission and vision and start today because you really won't arrive until it all comes down. We're the limiting factor, right? Our development is the limiting factor.
Yeah, talk about developing yourself, like one's personal development, because I know you have a coaching company and you mentioned your coach a couple of times. Talk about the importance that your coach has played in your life and, building your coaching company as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I was very fortunate to have several incredible mentors. I mentioned, Marilyn today several times, and I had someone named Jim who was an incredible mentor and especially financial mentor. And I, they kind of were attracted to me, and hopefully it is part of that law of attraction. Because what I recommend for everyone listening is to seek mentors because great people will be attracted to you when you really are authentic and you are, doing your best, and people will want to help. But definitely seek those out and do not do it alone. I would not recommend trying to do it alone because that's where you may go off the cliff, right? You won't have those guardrails. You do have to bump into things and to learn, right? You have to learn lessons, but you do not want to completely go off the cliff. And even for you, Sue, like when we were speaking earlier, so many entrepreneurs, John Lee Dumas calls it the baby effect from Entrepreneurs on Fire, and Gino Wickman and other people call it the entrepreneurial leap, taking the plunge, whatever you want to call it. There's a healthy amount of stress that we have to really go for it and to make it and to have, be fearless enough to do it. So yeah, get some mentors in your life. And even for me, I asked John Lee Dumas in 2018 to be my coach and mentor, and he handed me off to someone wonderful named Cloris Kiley, and we worked together for a period of time. And then there was a period of time where, for 4 or 5 years where I haven't had a mentor, and I just in November started again, and I'm really thrilled to do that. So I do think, having coaches and mentors, people that are, what John Lee Dumas says, at least 1 year ahead of where you want to be. You'll make a lot less mistakes, right? Because for my 13 years that I boiled down into the 4% breakthrough, definitely people could do some of that. They could do that entire process in 6 months if they're really focused on it. 6 months to a year. Maybe not a full self-managing business, but you can really get a lot of infrastructure and fundamentals in place and start to have a life, right? Because what I call it is no life syndrome. It's very easy to just, you know, burn it on all ends and just have, like you said, no semblance of a life. I think you might have said that in our pre-talk. You just didn't have time for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the season that I'm in, and as we're talking, I'm
Yeah,
realizing that okay, wait a minute, I need to infuse a little bit of fun in there. But honestly, for me personally, podcasting is not work. I love what I
yeah,
do. I love
I can
talking to
tell.
people, and it just flows for me. It's all the other stuff outside of it. Well, that's not entirely true either because I'm building out a company myself that I'm very passionate about. So and I think you would agree with this. When you're passionate about something, no matter how hard it is, it just doesn't feel like a job because you're
Right.
just so invested into it that you just enjoy it so much. And you
Yeah.
mentioned about stress and a healthy dose of stress. And
Right.
as you're growing something, I think that healthy dose of stress needs to be there because if it's not, I would think you would revert back to being comfortable and complacent, and then you really wouldn't want to grow anything at all. So there's that good stress in there to propel you forward
Agreed.
versus the bad stress. And I can see
Yeah.
where a good coach or a good mentor can keep you focused and keep the guardrails on to keep you from going in down holes that you don't want to go down. And funny story, my coach did that to
Yeah.
me. I texted him about a month and a half ago, and I said, "Hey, I think it'd be a great idea if I bought a coffee shop. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. What do you think about it?" And I think it took him about 6 seconds, and he texted back this long string of no's. I'm like, but I thought it was a great idea. He's like, no, 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 no. And I was
That is
thankful
very
for that
funny.
because, he kept the guardrails on for me in that moment because I
Yes.
thought, oh, I would
Yeah.
love to do this. I would love to run that. And he knows what direction I'm going. He's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, at the right point in your life, I mean, there's a lot to be
Yeah.
said. I'm just learning about acquisition entrepreneurship, but it sounds like you have a lot of exciting stuff going on with
Yeah.
your
Yeah. He's like,
podcast
yeah,
and
you don't need that.
yeah, for sure.
No, he's like, you don't need that with all the other things swirling around. He's like, you don't need that right now. Maybe and it wasn't a no forever. It was like, no, this is not where your zone of genius should be concentrated on right now. And that actually circles back to what we were talking about before,
Yeah.
about people knowing what their unique abilities are, knowing where their talents lie, knowing what drives them, their virtues, that underlying thread that drives everything that they do. And it's so important to know what they are, because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to build something on a foundation that you don't even know what the foundation is. It's like building a foundation, like having a foundation of sand. If you're going to build something on sand, it's not going to be solid. But if you build it on rock, and you know what that foundation is, then whatever it is that you build is going to stand and weather the test of time. It'll veer off to the left or to the right, maybe, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but if it's on that solid foundation, then at least you can rest knowing that, this is heading in the direction that I want it to head into. But what were some things that you thought would be hard about building your business and turned out it really wasn't? And then flip it. What were some things that you thought would be easy and then wound up being a lot more challenging for you?
Yeah. You know, there's very few things that sort of I can think back on that seem to be easy. However, easier, I guess, strength of mine is building a team. So, and even marketing. My mentor Jim just sort of, recognized that I'm a natural people person, and as I was talking to patients all day long, I was just letting them know about all the exciting things that we were doing, which was basically marketing. We're doing this, event this Saturday, and having this health fair, and all those things. So I was lucky, we were lucky to really have some of the best and brightest attracted to us. And I think that ties into our unique, um, plan of having a partnership track as well. So consider partnerships, and definitely do all the little things to attract and retain the brightest people on the planet, because you're only as good as your people. So that was a little bit easier for me. As far as some things that were harder that I would have thought would have been easier, you name it. Often, leading a group of people is it felt like herding cats. It was just so difficult. I guess, just like most entrepreneurs listening, like you hear consistently about writing your processes. And I had been familiar with Michael Gerber and the E-Myth early on, and I started some processes, but then we got some talented people, and I fell victim. I got too complacent, and I didn't finish that, and then we became people dependent, and we lost a couple of those great people, and everything went to hell. So then we finally got back on track, but it was really, for us, a massive effort to get all our processes in place. And to me, it's not a process unless you have it in writing, everyone trained, and then there's a process to manage your process, and which includes updating them. And your processes can fail at any one of those points because, for example, as soon as someone in your team doesn't follow a process and it's ignored, then that process is history. It's gone, right? Even if something as simple as a call out. If people are texting you on a Sunday night at midnight instead of, emailing, the day before, or whatever the the case may be, again, you will have no life when you're getting texts at midnight and you have your phone in your bedroom and those type of things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that system and processes from an entrepreneurial perspective sounds overwhelming to
Yeah,
do. But as you're saying, it's really important because as you're building, especially if you lose your people along the way.
yeah, yeah. And it really, in my opinion, only needs to take 10% more time than it would take to
Yeah.
next time you're doing something, just take an extra 10%, make a checklist. That's fine. That's a perfect, first step in a process. And as a compliment to your team, all the roles they're doing, first of all, ask them, to list out their responsibilities of the day and then decide what the priorities are. And then show them one example and have them write the processes for the roles they're having. They're going to feel good about it. They'll be able to go away on vacation and someone will be able to fill in for them. There's lots of win-win benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that translate to like daily life? Suppose somebody is listening is like, well, I'm not an entrepreneur. How can what we're talking about be incorporated into just, normal everyday life?
That's a great question. I was just thinking about this over the weekend, how many household leaders, which probably more traditionally are women, are really incredible leaders because the average household, I mean, we have 3 children, so a house of 5 is there's an incredible amount of activity and moving parts and chaos. So yeah, at home it's the same thing. If you need to make sure you're taking time for yourself, have your success schedule to for some self-care, and definitely you'll be able to delegate the shopping list if you have the right shopping, the grocery shopping, if you have the list and which stores. So it's basic processes. It really will translate, and even creating some boundaries um, on when your children should go to bed, or if they should be, if you're having some finally having some quality relationship time with your partner, and the kids just whatever, if you're doing a date night at home and they barge in on you. So all these same principles do apply for sure. They will help you with life as well.
If you could go back in time to your younger self and give yourself a message, what would it be?
Great question. So many things. I learned a lot of lessons in my 13 years as the operator before handing that off, and now starting a new company. I think it would be to give myself a little bit more grace and space. Again, with that high perfectionism, and it sounds like we both, suffer from slash benefit from it. It was easy to, yeah, be too hard on myself over periods of time, and no matter how low opportunities get, like things will pass. Whether it's, the you're getting sued, whatever you think the worst case scenario is, and there are some bad ones, and you will be shocked. Pandemics, we had 5 locations, and we had to close down 3, and I'm standing alone in a 6,000 square foot facility of myself, with a massive expensive lease. That was pretty low after we just furloughed 50 people. You No matter how strategic you are, you will not be able to predict everything. So give yourself a little grace, keep yourself healthy, and you will be able to continue to be David and against Goliath, and continue to conquer one day and one battle at a time, especially when things get tough. Break it down into small increments so that you can just get through a morning, and then a day, and then a week, and a month, and a year, and then just make sure those things align with your bigger planning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 1% better each day, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just keep going one more day, one more day. I heard that from Ed Milet. He just said, just go one more day. You never know. Today might be that day. One more day. That's it. Just
for
one more.
sure.
Just
It's
one more.
compounding. Yeah, and
Yeah.
1% compounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's another, it goes along with that saying, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
Right.
Did you ever think that what you started building way back, what was it, 2004, would be
Correct.
where you are today?
No, I mean, the Breakthru brand is now 12 locations, and, well over hundreds of employees, incredible team. So no, and I did not think it would be an asset that the smartest, most successful business people would be, you know, uh, breaking down our doors to try to, buy from us, and partner with us. Yeah, I couldn't have. Yeah, no, it's wonderful to think backwards to where we started. It took 6 months. I remember so many things about 2004. It took us 6 months to negotiate this little 300 square foot sublease, right? All the things are, the landlords wanted us to be tied in, that if the fitness center we were renting from failed, we had to take over the lease. And, so many challenges getting started. So yeah, we've come a long way. Again, you entrepreneurs and really successful people listening, I'm sure many of you can relate to wherever your goals and targets are, to feeling some frustration that you're not quite there, and but really look back on what you've accomplished, and I think that perspective will, tie into the mindset that we spoke about, will really keep you energized and thriving, and keep you mentally in the right place.
I love that. Looking back to help you go forward because we
Yes.
need to celebrate those wins or else you just don't have any drive to keep doing what it is that you're doing. I'm thoroughly enjoying our conversation, and like any good podcast, you do have to eventually come to an end. So I like asking all my guests the same. There's three core questions. I call my core
Okay.
three. So let's jump into them. And the
Okay.
first question, we talked about a few, but I want you to pinpoint one. What's a book that's had a significant impact on you?
Yeah, I would share the most recent book that's had the biggest impact on me, which, I mentioned Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. Highly can't recommend it enough. The list would go on. I mentioned Think and Grow Rich earlier, as a second choice. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, yeah, I mean, so good. Yeah, start there. And of course, and of course, the E Myth, right? As well. To really systematize your business, think of it like it's a franchise. Check that out as well when you're able to.
Yeah, that's a great book. What's one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about all the main messages I like to share. I touched on partnership quickly, but just to maybe give another quick, um, tidbit on it. Definitely consider leveraging. I'd recommend for everyone listening to consider partnerships as part of your business model. Even if it's just incentive plans at first, and then even shadow uh, equity. And then if it's a good fit, partnerships are a great way to create a win-win. You can have your best people do big things in the company. And as I mentioned, someone that started off as an intern and then became a physical therapist and then a manager and then our director of operations and our COO and then our CEO. It was really a fun ride, and that accelerated self-managing company where I was able to spread my wings and do all the things that I talked about today that I'm just loving, coaching and having more lifestyle and geographic freedom. So consider that and be on the lookout, for my book on that. And if anyone needs any help with that, just reach out for sure.
At what point, actually, as you were talking, I was thinking about private equity and
Yeah,
partnerships. At what
yeah.
point in somebody's entrepreneurial journey that they're building their business would you recommend that they consider that, like at a point? Is there a
So
particular
what I
size or number of people?
Yeah, great question. I think when your vision work, right, you'll know whether you want to build something to keep or something to sell, if you want to keep it and have legacy. So that'll help you know the answer. But even if you want to have legacy and you want to keep your profit generating machine, I recommend early on, right now, no reason to delay, to know your industry and how companies are valued, because you always want your business to, you want to have leverage, and you just want to, know that you have a valuable asset. I've seen so many entrepreneurs just in our plaza in the last 6 months, a an incredible entrepreneur who had a 35-year-old business had to close it down. She wasn't able to sell it, and of course, right, we all know people that have had to do that. So no valuation, and that'll help you think about even the name of your business, not to be Lance Knob's Physical Therapy, right? So create a brand, get your processes in place, start to have a life, build some value. It all happens together. So yeah, again, some of that strategic thinking, and these are just some of the ways that it could really have some tangible benefits to you. And yeah, no reason to delay.
Yeah, yeah, that's some great advice there. I love it. So as we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Another incredible question, Sue. You are so good, and this has been so much fun. I think that I am starting to do some more speaking, and I just did a talk in Toronto, and I really put my heart and soul into my talk. And the the call to action and the main part of the talk, it was experiential. I shared with people how to do a combination of meditation, visualization, and guided breathing, all together. So I guess you would call that, really vision work. So really dream and create your dream life, and then you will be amazed how it will become possible to achieve it. But you have to know your dream. And I feel like a great example of this is Arnold Schwarzenegger, his recent documentary called Arnold. He had a clear dream on his bodybuilding goal, and he achieved it. And then he had a clear dream on being a lead actor, and he achieved it. And then a clear dream on being, a world-class politician, and he achieved it. So that's where I would start. Really, eyes open, eyes closed, get in nature, but just go have fun and dream and play and figure out what your ultimate goal is, your end vision, and then go make it happen.
Oh, I love it. I think that's great. And you've built a life like that too. You set your dream and then, we talked a lot about that. Thanks for sharing that. How can people find you, reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And everyone listening, please follow Sue and subscribe to the podcast, Small Steps, Big Wins. And she's got some incredible guests coming up. She was telling me about it and has had some incredible guests, and she puts her heart and soul into the podcast. So yeah, please follow and subscribe. For me, you're welcome. For me, Denali Consulting Team.com is our website. And my social handles are pretty much Dr. Lance Knaub, LanceKnaub, on most socials. And for anyone that really wants to see the framework of the jolt that you and I did, the life and business plan, for those people that actually check it out and complete a first draft, I'm happy to do a 30-minute strategy call with you to help fill in any gaps. So that would be Denali Consulting team.com/jolt. Check out that fast and functional framework and go ahead and think about your mission, your vision, your company mission, your critical success factors, and then even your 1 year goals. And I'd be happy to help you create a completed first product of that.
Perfect. Lance, thank you for the gift of your time. This has been incredible.
Thank you so much, Sue. Look forward to talking again. Can't wait to see you soon.
Same, same. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, check out my website, personalcoachfinder.com, and find someone who can help. Remember, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. Take small steps today and make your life awesome, friends.